Hey, everybody. Hey, guys and gals.
Hello.
If people want to say hello, you have the chat window. Right before you guys came on, we were talking about where we're all stuck in solidarity. So I'm in Philadelphia.
Portland.
Mark.
Yeah, and I'm in London, but we're allowed out for one type of exercise a day.
What is the exercise?
You could go for a walk or a run, I think.
Oh, so
That's
you can
allowed.
like. How do
We're
they
unsure.
track how many exercises a day?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I don't know what would happen if you attempted to do a walk and a run. Would you then be?
You're like, well, I broke it up. And like the walk wasn't an exercise. I was going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
And Tony Chiboucas.
Good enough.
Did I do that? The Chiboucas?
Close enough. It's all good. Chiboucas, but yeah.
We found out what his last name meant. Why don't you tell people what your last name meant?
Smoker of the pipe. Yeah, a lot of people love that one.
It's cool when your last name has like a meaning, like history. I think that actually somebody from Neo had told me what my last name meant. And it's a person who drags a lot of things, has a lot of bags, and drags a lot of things. It's like the carrier of things.
Yeah, the carrier of the Neo4j community, Karine.
It's literally a person
We
that
don't want
just
to
like
talk about carriers in the current social economic
that's
situation.
That's true. I'm the carrier for the Neo4j community. Who else? Oh, we have somebody else from Downstream here today. Where is everybody? Where are you guys all at? What are your locations where you are stuck in solitude? Yeah, there's some places where like they're limiting the distance you can leave your house and how long you can be outside with your dog. Oh, George, I'm in Philadelphia too. Woo. And Leonard, hi, Philadelphia. Yeah, you have Kansas City, Calgary, India, Switzerland, Birmingham, Nashville. Wow, it's people from all over the
I
world.
see Mike Morley's there. I hope he's wearing his toque. March, it should be cold enough.
Do you know Harrison? Do you know Harrison? Harrison's also from Portland.
Yes, he works with me. So Harrison and Peter Sooley there are also CMS developers.
Are they going to be asking the mean questions?
Probably not. They've been listening to me gush about Neo4j for months now.
Awesome.
That's a very, very smooth intro there.
Leonard, I did paint this Pegasus behind me. I just painted it while I was in solitary confinement. Thanks for asking. So I think we could probably get started. Oh, just FYI for all the folks here. By the way, if you didn't hear, we're doing a Graphs for Good graph hack where we have a bunch of different interesting projects. There's a lot of people who were working on COVID-19 projects. So they were pulling in data from all these different places and doing all kinds of interesting analysis with it and visualization and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to be doing that. We're doing the kickoff tomorrow. I'll add the link to the blog post in here. So if anybody's interested in joining, if you didn't already, you can. We also, tomorrow, we actually have some folks from the UN that are going to be giving us data sets on the 17 sustainable goals. They're trying to do like knowledge graphs off of this massive amounts of data that they have. And there's also another one for supply chain to get like medical products and stuff to like medical facilities. Like, it's like supply chain stuff, like kind of like a little market. Hi, George. Okay, I'll let you guys take it. Tony, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Anthony Chiboucas. Everybody just knows me as Tony. I've been doing software development for about 20 years now. Right now I'm working as a CMS developer at Downstream, which is an experience design firm specializing in executive briefing centers and university installations and things like that. I'm a dad, a geek, a gamer, and my whole world is computers. This whole project has actually been a little bit of a personal passion for me and a whole lot of people at Boise State and our design director at Downstream, and we're all excited about it.
Mark, you have to introduce yourself with 3 words.
I don't know, in 3 words. I've already used them. I work in the developer relations team with Corinne at Neo, and I've been working on I was working on the graph algorithm stuff before it sort of became the graph data science library, and then we sort of do, along with a few others, we do integrating Neo with different tools to make it easier for people to do whatever they're trying to do, whatever projects they're trying to build with Neo.
Yeah, he's the co-author of the graph algorithms book that is available for free download for like the next 2.5 weeks. So you guys should get it now.
Yeah, well, at least worth a skim.
Yes. All right. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask on the live chat, and Mark will probably make the decision to relay them during the presentation if they're relevant during that time, or we could save them for the end. And if you want to put them, you can actually put them directly in the Q&A section. There's like little tabs in the chat window, or you could just type it and it says add to Q&A, and then those could be saved till the very end.
Yep.
Right? Is there anything else I'm missing?
No, I think we're good.
All right.
Let's
so
do this.
Tony, take it away. Let's.
Okay, so what I have been working on primarily for almost a year now is grafting art history, and I'm doing that by creating a Neo4j plugin that, without a lot of tweaks, wouldn't be really useful to many other people, except for there's a lot of tidbits in it that I think everyone out there is going to find useful. Eventually, I'm going to turn it into something more adaptable to any project. For now, what that plugin's purpose is collecting a federated database built by Boise State University and turning that into a graph and then a JSON API of slices into that graph. And our first iteration through it is doing that with the METS archive. Now, I've already introduced myself. I'm Tony. And what we're going to be covering here is that Neo4j purpose-built plugin using Neo4j's internal API and JavaX to both trigger ingesting external data and provide a JSON API, and to do that to create a graph of art history with that plugin. Now, the slide's dead. So, the trick with any app development is really getting specific, well-structured data. I should share my screen here. Specific, well-structured data useful to the app at whatever instance the user is interfacing with it. Now, for a graph database, that means we need useful, predictable, structured slices of that graph. And which screen am I looking at? Is this the right one? There we go. So what kind of structure we want from this API is a defined schema.
You might need to zoom in, Tony. You might need to zoom in if you can on certain screens, like because it comes up kind of small.
I'm not sure if I can zoom in. I can do this.
Yes, that's good too. If you guys can't see it or something, just like let me know and I will, translate that to Tony too.
So we want well-structured data. This has schemas from JSON schema. The root of this API documents is kind of self-documenting, so it tells us what methods are available: search, search completion, finding related topics, this particular URL we're already on, finding assets for a topic, etc. And any one of these, any app is going to be looking at a particular topic or a particular asset from a museum archive, and we want to give all the relevant information for that topic or asset. So what that really means is that
The screen resolution is still like a little low. It's low resolution. Mark, do you know what we could do to fix that if for the screen sharing?
We'll have to have a look. I don't know if there's a setting that we can.
And Big Maker does not like switching back and forth between slides and sharing your screen.
Can you go back to the screen share? Let's see if we could figure this out.
And you want to see?
Yeah,
this?
I don't know. Yeah, it is. It is actually pretty low, like resolution. So I'm not really sure.
I mean, we have video bitrate set to high. I don't know whether it makes a difference if we change it.
Yeah, we definitely need to do something about it because it's very difficult to see.
Awesome. Is that on my side? Let's check.
Victor asked if this is somewhat similar to a semantic web graph like the one regarding Noam Chomsky knowledge graph that was referring to citations. And yes.
There are some similarities to that, yes.
And George Zimmerman asked if this is a GraphQL API.
No.
Okay. We're working on the screen stuff, and we're gonna come back to it in a moment. In the meantime, Tony, have you picked up any interesting hobbies while you've been in isolation?
No. I have been programming and spending every extra bit of time that I have with my 3-year-old Oliver. He's awesome. Well, while we're working on those, there are some.
Somebody said window key S display, change display settings.
Not so much.
No.
Are you saying see if we can shrink down my displays?
It's got to be. I'm assuming that it's got to be part of like your share screen, like through the software.
That's what I was thinking too, but what I could do.
So William Michaels asked if you could drop your screen res to 640 by 480.
Yeah, and there's another thing I can do too. Let's work some magic here and see how this works.
There's a what does Lou call it? Lou, she says that it's like the demo demons, like the live demo demons. It's always like CA says it's a screen resolution issue. Drop the resolution.
Well, and I am working on that.
All right. So while he's working on that, I'm gonna ask the attendees that we have here. Has anybody here picked up any interesting hobbies, or like what have you guys been doing while you're in solitude? Anything interesting? Mark, are you still here?
Yeah.
I
haven't been doing anything interesting.
You just got back to London too.
Yeah, I'm only on day 6. Haven't got to the point of learning anything new yet.
Yeah, we suggested for Mark to just stay on the beautiful little island that he was hanging out at. Somebody put in a help article, Big Markers Index. How do I share my screen in HD? Let's see.
Yeah, we have that enabled already, but
okay, now I've got to move some screens around. I think I've got it. One sec.
Who knows whether it might be just we're all breaking the upload capacity of all the ISPs in the world, and they're not very happy with us.
Well, yeah. Computers and chaos don't really get along well together.
That's true. Thanks everyone for being patient with the technical issues here. Yeah. One of the things I was actually thinking about doing with our community, which I'm not sure if it would be a good idea or not, because it could be like really like a lot of people. If a lot of people join, it would be difficult to do. Victor asks if you're on Wi-Fi.
No.
Is
240 down, 20 up.
I'm going to try sharing it again. Let's see how it is now.
Yeah.
Yep. Now I just got to find the window that I was using.
Karine, for the hackathon, do you get from tomorrow until mid-April? Is that how, do you get 2 weeks?
Yeah,
to
so
work
it's
on it?
until April 14th. Although, like, you know, we would encourage people to continue hacking after the fact. But since April 15th is Leonard Euler's birthday, for those who don't know who are here, it's the guy who invented graph theory. We figured that would be a good day for people to showcase their projects, you know,
Cool.
on the graph theory day. So yeah, I think it's going to be pretty cool. I think we have some interesting projects that have been submitted, like already. There's a lot of people signing up for it. I think it's going to be. Tony Harrison wants you to know that you look great, though, Tony. Yeah, I was thinking about doing something with our community that would be like some kind of game, like charades or Pictionary or something like that. But I think it's going to be pretty difficult to do with like if we get like 70 people signed up for like a. All right, let's see.
Okay. How's that?
I think it might be the same. Can we see your graph? Yeah, it's still. Oh wait.
No, if you stop scrolling, then it seems it's.
Yeah. If you stop scrolling, then it steadies.
Okay.
Okay, so do everything in slow motion.
So I hope you all have 3 hours.
And then zoom.
No,
So-
I mean you don't have to speak in slow motion. Just let it stay there without moving
There we
it.
go.
It's not too bad.
Oh
Don't
yeah.
move
So
things.
don't move.
All
Got
right,
it.
All right. So what are we looking at now?
So this is the JSON API that the plugin is providing by piggybacking on Neo4j's built-in JavaX web server.
Cool. Okay.
So, and that's just the piece that I was trying to show. Now I'm going,
so
doing screen sharing.
Is that data consumed by the application that you're talking about, or?
So the piece that I have built is a plugin that ingests all the data, puts it into the Neo4j in a graph, creates a metagraph on top of that, and uses the metagraph to provide slices into the art data. And then another, so there's 2 other endpoints. So I'll get there. I'll get there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't want to get you to say the whole presentation on one slide.
Well, you know, I could.
All right, I'll let you carry on.
So we want a useful and predictable slices of that graph with a well-structured schema for other apps to use. Now to do that, it would be nice if we also had a friendly API view, because let's be honest, when you're dealing with sometimes 1 megabyte JSON files, no one wants to have to read that to find one bug somewhere. And also, we're dealing with images. So one of the things that I built on top of this was also a viewer for that same data. And you can switch back and forth between the viewer and the API like that. So, for instance, this
so the viewer is reading data from the API, right?
The viewer is using the API to create a really lightweight JavaScript set of widgets that then creates a web UI for it.
Okay,
but
cool.
It's still every request is only pinging the API that we're looking at here, but also lets you switch back and forth between API URLs and a viewable, like a user-friendly version of that same data.
Okay, cool. So we got the widgets here. They call the the API. The API is basically exposing the data from the plugin, and then every time you're hitting the API endpoint, that's doing some sort of query to Neo4j to get the data out. That's the flow. Okay, got it.
You're jumping ahead again, but yes. So now this is just mostly for my purposes is why I built it, because I needed to explore this graph that I was building and find the connections between different particular assets. So if we say we want to look at, the Greek culture, this is pulling in a selection of assets, specific data. Now this is only based on the METS data, but then also related topics, and I'll get into what these things are. But this is just a useful tool for taking a look at what this API is providing. But the idea here is that I also want people to be able to build this graph, play with it, break it, monkey with the API. And for that purpose, we also, this entire repository is soon going to go public. So at the root of our repository, I do have an intro to how to download the entire archive, how to get an instance of this plugin running on your local Neo4j or running on an Ubuntu server instance of it, and provide everything that you see here. It's all going to be free and open source. So now the thing that I'm a little bit proud of here is that to do that, I'm not actually going to run this because I don't want to break it in the middle of the presentation, but I have automated commands built in that if I run this, it will rebuild and recollect the information from Boise State University's OpenPipe archive and rebuild the entire graph. And so once you have this plugin installed on your local version of Neo4j, all you have to do is make one web request to your local instance, wait an hour, and you'll have the graph on your local instance. And you'll have this API and will be able to have this viewer. And that's the main goal of this plugin. Now, how? And that's always, like, we're all data geeks and programmers and experimenters and explorers. And the big question that we always are trying to figure out is how, not just why, but how. So to do this plugin, I'm leveraging the Graph Database Service that we're all familiar with if you've done any plugin work, which actually isn't a lot because it's tricky to get that stuff all right. And I'm leveraging Cypher heavily, especially for pulling data from Boise State's OpenPipe and overloading a bunch of different resource methods of Neo4j's built-in Java XWS implementation. I'll show you that in a second. And then building a set of web resources for Jersey and to return JSON results, nice and simple. And to make this much simpler, I've made sure that all of those results are really just GET requests, and that way I don't have to worry about anything RESTful in this scenario. But eventually I do intend to be able to support in the open source version some REST interfaces in that API as well. So now, creating the graph from OpenPipe. Actually, this isn't the best order to get into. Let me show you a little bit of what OpenPipe looks like. And it's choking. Sublime text, no, why have you failed me? And everyone's silent.
It's the demo demons.
It must be.
Yeah, we try to mute our mics, but attendees do have the ability to turn their microphones on and chat if they want to, which we could maybe do at the end if people have questions.
Gotcha. So let me pull back to the slide so I can skip ahead a little bit, because I do have some basics in there. At the end of this, I was going to go into the details of Open Pipeline. So why don't we just do that real quick here? So Boise State University's Open Pipeline is a federated database running Python across Lambdas to ingest a bunch of different museum archives. Currently, they have 5 in there. They're planning to roll 20 by summer, and then reorganize and clean up the archive data to get it into a flattened federated database, and then also reprocess that to both to fix missing pieces, to correct misspellings, to canonicalize different properties, and then notify curators where automation couldn't cut it, and then provide a API for external applications like this plugin that I've built to collect and ingest that federated data set. So any questions on that one? Because that's kind of a big piece of this whole puzzle that Boise State University's Director of Computer Science, Stephen Kuchin, and a few of his upper graduates, mostly Rejvan, have been dedicating the last year to building this thing. So
if anybody has any questions, when Tony's like asking if you have any questions and you like need a second to write it out, you can push the little hand icon like underneath where you type your messages, and that puts your hand up to like let us know that to wait up for you to write the question. And if not, we could just continue. Oh, we have somebody's raising their hand, so you got to give them a second to write it out. Peter Sully. So if anybody has any questions, you can write them out now. So there's no GraphDB in the Open Pipeline, right?
Correct. Open Pipeline, I think, though I'm not sure, is actually running on MySQL. And it is one giant flat table.
Jeremy Freeman is asking how big is the data set?
I have no idea. I know that the current OpenPipe data set has, what was it? It was about 200 pages or two. So about 50,000 assets in it. The graph that I'm currently building against, I built directly against the METS API, and that one has 480,000 assets in it. The expectation is that the production version, when we open, will probably have ideally at least 500,000, more likely closer to 1 million or 2 million. And if this continues to go the way we think it will, eventually 5 or 10 million assets in that data set.
Okay. Okay. So
all art everywhere, yes.
Yeah, so you can see what they're saying. The total number of assets available and the sum total of all assets available in the 5 different museums. Okay, cool.
And that's Stephen Kuchin, the director of Computer Science at Boise State University, responsible for building Open Pipeline, which is a very awesome, beautiful project you should all take a closer look at.
Awesome. All right, cool.
Okay, so now that we have an idea of what that graph looks like, we need to convert assets into nodes on the graph. And how do we do that? So let's see if I can. Wow, dealing with this itty-bitty screen resolution, it's gonna drive me nuts.
I think if you keep it still, it sharpens.
It sharpens it for you, but I still can't read it. Let's get me. Okay.
Oh, that's That's horrible.
Yeah. This isn't going to be very useful. Okay, so I'll just show this one little piece.
Could you zoom in a little bit?
Yep. Okay, so the idea is we have these assets in OpenPipe, and we want to extract them into a metagraph of the particular assets and any particular topic or property on the assets that we might want to look at. And from there, we can create a JSON API that when you ask for one particular asset or property on an asset, it can show you all the assets tagged with that same property, and it can show you related topics, as I call them. I'm not going to dive deeper into this because of our technical issues. But I will say that Neo4j's graph modeling guidelines are probably one of the best places to start before you even start learning Cypher, because some of the basic pieces of information in here are critical. And most importantly are the shorthand many in, few out for building relationships. And when we are building these, we need to think of not only getting the data into the graph and how to represent it as represent the real world as accurately as possible, but more importantly, what pieces of information we want to get out. Now, I can't show you the flowchart and magic that I created to try to define the way I designed this graph, but the simple idea is that if you have a particular asset,
You can't show it because of the resolution, or?
no, it
Okay.
was in that flowchart bit, and if I'm on this low resolution, it's not going to be very useful to look at.
Okay. I think you might also be able to.
Is the data in that database that you're querying now?
Yes, it is.
Then maybe you could, is it 3.5?
Yes, it is.
So you could try call db.schema if it's already there, and it should draw you a schema off what's in the database.
Oh, you want to see that? I've got that already.
Yeah, I think. Oh, you did that already? Is that what you meant, Corinne? Is that what you?
Well, he wanted to show like the flowchart of how he got there, so that's why I just.
Yeah, I was going to go briefly into some database design basics, because it's one of the things that I've seen really commonly in the community is people will get into Neo4j and Cypher and just start making things or just start trying to query against a data set.
Yeah.
But they're, with relational databases, designing those relationships is important. And if you don't do it right, it'll all fall apart. With graph databases, you can build whatever you want without planning. But if you don't plan, you're not going to be able to get any information back out again in a useful manner.
Yeah.
Somebody asked if you can make the flowchart available later.
Yes.
But you could also show
That is
it if
my
you wanted to
intention.
just briefly show it, and then
I'll
not talk about it too much. But
Tony,
I'll clean it up and get it out.
is this the first graph-based project that you've done, or have you done some other ones before this one?
No, actually, for this project, I learned Neo4j and Java to write the plugin.
Okay, cool.
yeah, we might have to. Can we zoom in a little bit on this?
That might not be super easy.
Okay.
I could
All right,
try.
whatever. All right, that's
okay.
Yeah, now you can see it. Everything clears up after you just.
Now this, so the only piece, why is this not showing me artwork? There. So the real data is only on these nodes. And any metagraph or metanodes or relationships that you might need to represent from this data set is almost always going to be built from this node. The rest of these nodes are built when I'm ingesting data from OpenPipeline, but they're really just a metagraph. And they're the metagraph that I use to build the API. We're going to be adding 4 other, and each one of these are actual topics. We're going to be adding 4 other topic types into this for production: genre, medium, as well as geographical and temporal information into this graph and the API, and all of it's available in artwork, in the artwork data. But the idea of, how do you create these relationships? Where are you going to be querying? Well, the moment that I have this metagraph, I know one thing for certain. If we have many in and few out, and I want to look at a particular artist, then I want to be able to get everything that I need for that artist from all of its outbound connections without having to look at any of the inbound connections. And it's little things like that, that some of the basic rules of graph modeling that are very important to understand before you start building your first graph database. Anyway, so back to creating the graph and which properties can be worked with. That is where I got the different topics and the properties that I was showing you. I wonder if, no, I'm just going to move along. We're running out of time, so I'm going to speed this up.
You can actually, I mean, if you go over, like, people can decide if they want to continue watching or whatever, so that's fine.
Okay. So to make all this possible, so I'm going to, from here forward, get really deep into the code of the plugin itself. And so I hope everyone that's going to be tricky on here too with our resolution issues. But we should be able to make it work, and I hope everyone likes looking at Java. But to make all this possible, we need those metagraphs, but we also need abstraction layers between the metagraph and a JSON response. So what does that actually look like? Where are you? Now I've got to move my screen stuff around again. Hey, there we go. So this is the code we're looking at. At its core, we have let's just look at our root resource, that first one that we all saw. So if anybody makes a request to the root, it's going to send back a Java WS response. And I've got some magic built in here that goes in, passes the request into a response object, and this is just raw inline building a JSON object and spitting it back out again. But where the magic is in these different topics. So the topics list, we can get this one is a magic one, that's right. Let me just show you what related. So related. So if we're looking at a particular topic, this utility just goes in, creates a topic from what we've passed in, and builds a response from it. And it's doing all of this through some basic behaviors, and all of these are just different. So if we have an asset, what kind of structure do we want? If we're doing topics, what kind of structure do we want? If we're doing a search, what to send back in the data? And that gives us both the JavaX resource and this behavior. as abstraction layers between the request and the Cypher command itself. So if we look at a particular command, so if we saw in the behavior, as soon as we create a new, I'm not going to get too deep into this. This will take forever to show off. So if we are doing, let's say, the related, which is our most basic, we do, it's going to run topic shared relations, which is simply a query that we pass parameters into that the JavaX side that this plugin decides and forces to be integer or queries that has some sanitization going on. And then runs that request, converts each resulting row into a internal topic type, and then the topic type itself converts itself into JSON. And then once that's done, the resource is able to...
Can we try to shut your video off for a couple of minutes just to see if it helps with the resolution of the screen?
Sure.
I might be able to do it for you. Oh no, I can't do it for you. Just because when you're going through the code, sometimes it gets foggy and it's like really hard to see to keep up with it. Okay, let's try it again and see if that works.
Okay. So, maybe I can do this. It's going to be really hard to step through. Can I increase the size? How do you increase the size?
I think it's okay as long as we kind of make stops throughout, because it takes a second to go away from like being just super grainy.
There. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in this case, what we're doing here, maybe I should actually show the request itself first, which is this. So we have the related culture Greek. And if we go to see the source data, we get back the particular node that we're looking at, which is called Greek. We have key encoded and key raw, which are eventually these are going to be switched over to GUIDs, which won't be the raw name, but then we'll still have the name to show it. And so this will have culture, the GUID, and then all of the assets in it. So these are the assets or the particular works of art that are cataloged in a museum. So this is the Met, and we can pull that image. It's the object, date, the key field, title, type, tags. So this is the basics of where we've extracted all that metagraph. But we also have related topics, and this is the piece that I'm about to show, is not only can we get the this particular node in its artwork, that's the real thing we care about, we can also pull that metagraph out of here and show the most connected artists, the most connected nations, classifications, etc. And each one of these, likewise.
Someone asked if you could stop moving your mouse so fast.
Sorry.
It makes the grainy, like the graininess come back every time, I think. But
okay. So, man, I still have a little cough. Staying home.
Uh-oh.
So this is the related meta topics extracted from the assets that we are now showing. And these are all ordered by the number of shared connections. So for Greek, we're seeing first is the most interconnected artist with Greek. In other words, the most number of shared connections between Greek and any artist is Sophos painter. The next most is Antimes. Now, some interesting things fall out of this, like we can see that Italy is more influential on Greek culture than Greece is. And that's actually probably an artifact of the Met's archive. It's not necessarily real, because we are looking at what curators have entered, not necessarily the way the real world is. But we also see that the Greek mostly worked, or the Met curated mostly Greek works about women first, men second, horses, birds, animals, etc. Which is why when we look at, well, anyway, I'm digressing. So the way we built that is that we pull in our topic, the culture, the value, Greek, make sure we have both of those parameters, force them into being strings, do some other magic on it buried in here to make sure it's sanitized, and then create our topic. So what is this really doing here? So we're grabbing those values, storing them into kind of a response pattern that then passes that response
Steve,
into.
Steve suggested that you maybe scroll a little slower, because it becomes
Yeah,
like super grainy and then clears up.
I just noticed my habit.
Okay.
My habit coding is just like up, down, left,
I think a lot
really
of
hard to
people
break
are
that
like
habit.
that. It's a lot of people are, but when you present, it's like a little different, I guess. But
Absolutely.
also when you have the resolution issue where it keeps cutting in and out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's
I will
not.
make an effort.
It's not that you have to kill the habit. It's just you have to kill the habit right now, which is even worse.
So what this is then doing, so this response object passes those parameters into the request that gets built, and then when we run this handle behavior pattern, it will build that response according to the behavior we defined. The magic in there is, again, this topic shared relations query, which is going to grab that, where are we? The topic and the target, build the query from it, so that we're really just running match a particular query type, a particular topic type, and then pull related wow, I don't remember how I built this actually.
Peter asked from a high level, what is the API flow? Do the requests come in as JSON and then parse into a Cypher query? And where does the plugin fit into that flow?
They're all, so the requests all come in as raw gets. And then the plugin pulls the parameters out of the URL and passes them into the base resource, which then builds a behavior. There it is. And then the behavior grabs those, the label and key that we passed in, creates a new topic instance, and then that topic is passed to the behavior, or excuse me, to the query itself, and then the query comes back and builds out all of our results from the Cypher query. Does that make sense?
Dennis asked, how do you refresh the data? If, for example, do museums allow you to subscribe to updates to their curated database?
So that is A question for Steve Kuchin and Open Pipeline, but the short answer is the MET at least provides a public open source API where you can make requests of that API at your leisure.
Steve is also on the chat, so he can probably answer that question too.
But every museum has different patterns, different requirements. Some of them are free and public and open source. Others require certain subscriptions. And Steve's saying in OpenPipe, they run nightly reports that check the validity of any tracked link. So it's the plugin that I'm building is then going to be probably daily, but we'll have a URL that Open Pipeline, because it's running in Lambdas, can fire that will make requests back against Open Pipeline to get a change set of any assets that have been modified since the last time we ingested that data. And that way, the Open Pipeline itself, that federated database engine, can be the authority in when and where information is synced between the museums and this graph and the public API on top of the graph. So I'm going to move along since we're having trouble and I've lost my place in my code. And so to be fair, a little bit of a disclaimer is I spent all of this week trying to get, I was this close. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. I was very, very close to having the first launch of the production instance of this ready to show for this presentation. But in the 0th hour, as I was rebuilding the clean final graph, problems ensued and production isn't ready. So most of my brain has been, for the last 4 days, in a completely different place. So please forgive me for my inability to walk you through my code at this exact moment. But it's all going to be free and public and open source. So anyone who's interested, I can show you a lot more in depth later. Hey, where'd my mouse go? There we are. So as I showed, we did start with the MET. Now I can show the Cypher queries that I used to, Steve's also saying that we also have curators who make corrections or working on agents with Lambdas to try to correct automatically. I think I explained that earlier, but if that didn't come through, but that's the main goal of OpenPipe is first it collects those museum assets. Then it's running Lambdas against what it has collected to try to automatically clean up the data set. And anything that it's not able to accurately clean up or data that it identifies as being missing or probably incorrect is able to notify curators who then have a friendly web UI to go in and correct or add the information in for those particular assets. That way, this big federated archive of ideally hundreds of museums eventually is live, up to date from all of those museums and has a common, predictable, stable set of properties that everyone can rely on. So the MET and how I really built this graph that you were looking at. Where are you? No. So the MET itself, the first step was create, slow down with the mouse and the scrolling. I got to remember that. Okay. So I built indexes on all of the labels that I was going to use in the metagraph and for the particular artworks. Defined parameters for the MET's public API and some fields that I wanted to operate on so that it would strip out any that were empty string or null or weren't fields that I could use or almost or never in the Met. Because let me be frank, the Met's data is pretty dirty, but it's also very powerful. So then we go through, build a instance for the Met source, in other words, so that we can credit the Met or any particular museum that we've collected that data from. We'll always be able to identify where a particular asset and even which topics have been contributed by which museums. I'm not going to get too deep into the way the Met's API works, but I had to go through and pull all the departments out first so that I could build a list of IDs for each asset or artwork in this case in the Met's data set that then I could later make a separate request for each artwork to grab the raw data from the Met. And again, here we go, APOC to the rescue every time. When you're dealing with the Met, we're talking 460,000 specific assets. That's not something that you want to run in one giant load JSON command. So I had to go through and do APOC periodic commit to make a separate request, build the resulting data set, and then once that was built, go through and build my metadata, clean it up a little bit. So it's the same pattern that Steve at OpenPipe has already pretty much done. And then we can generate our particular topics and extract assets, artworks, classifications, and generate the connections between the particular topics in the metagraph. I try to pull out names and titles for assets and topics which might not have anything useful, because the Met often puts very generic labeling on a lot of that data. And then go in and do our best to find an image from an existing asset for a particular topic and pick a best guess at which one we're going to use to represent that node in the metagraph. We do have plans with OpenPipe to create a sort of curator score and a relevancy score for each asset, so that we can more intelligently select a particular asset image as being representative of a topic, but that's a whole other story. A story rife with needing path embedding and deeper graph analysis and the graph algorithms plugin. Then we can finally go through, actually I could have done this in the beginning, but I also have 2 additional indexes which I use for the search utility in the API, so that anytime you run search, it will actually look for whatever your search query against a whole bunch of different meta nodes, as well as the particular assets. And so that's how we create this giant graph of the Met data. And APOC to the rescue. Every time I started getting half a step deep into pulling anything from the Met, I ran into the problem of giant lists and memory overloads. None of this would have been possible without APOC. And let me just say, if anyone's looking at doing anything like this, everything in APOC will save you, and both time and effort and frustration. I used various combinations of APOC periodic commit and iterate and APOC load JSON to build all of this. And as you may have seen, even the latest iteration, where is it? I'm actually running APOC periodic commit and inside APOC periodic commit, running APOC load JSON to then, I'm not going to get into the what, but just layering the right tools in the right places is what made all of this possible. So what the next step from all of this really boils down to is exploration and analysis. I mean, art history is a big subject, and there are little things everywhere that I would never be able to find on my own. As I said, I only just started getting into Neo4j when this project started. So I'm going to need all your help. And ideally, once we make this public and open source, that there's a lot more people than just me that will find this exciting. And the reason why we did this comes down to art history, developments and impressions. I mean, there's nothing bigger. There are, actually, let me see if I can show you that. Aside from this fun meta graph,
Tony, we should probably, after this, start to think about wrapping up because we're getting sort of close to the hour. I guess people might need to head off.
okay. But there's patterns everywhere. So we'll just wrap up. Okay. So the idea that we went through here is this all really kind of started from a simple concept of Boise State University coming to us downstream to try to create a exhibit for digital media, and that very, very quickly turned into a digital exhibit for all of art history, because anything that could support digital media could support art history. So we built, well, Steve planned and built Open Pipeline as a public open source federated database, which I've talked enough about. And I worked on building that JSON, that API from that plugin based on Open Pipeline's data set that we've already talked about. Oh, it was in the slides. Man, I was not prepared enough for this. And
oh, you were too prepared. You just forgot that you'd prepared.
We'll go with that. I like that one better. So this whole engine that we've built comes from this goal of getting digital media in a public space where people can explore art digitally. And that led to this very big idea and engine that can and will be public, open source, free to everybody. And with a list of over 100 museums with online APIs that are going to be added to this engine. And eventually, my hope is that anyone excited about graphs or into art history, curious about what kind of new insights that we can find, will find use and be able to contribute to both this archive, the graph itself, and new insights into the human condition and history as a whole. I'm going to stop there. Yes, George?
Cool. All right, let's see. Wow, George has raised his hand 3 times. Must be.
Oh, I do need naming suggestions for this plugin.
Oh, that was his computer gone rogue.
Well, thank you, George. I do need naming suggestions for this plugin because currently it's called BSU API, which is vague, generic, and even Boise State University doesn't like BSU as a shorthand for it. So anyone who has any suggestions for what that plugin should be called, I am on board. I hope that was fun and interesting, but there's a lot of directions I wanted to take it that I wasn't able to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can always share the slides if people want to see any of the stuff, or there's always other ways of sharing it. Once you've got a name for the plugin, I guess you can post it on the Neo community side, and we can include it in the newsletter for you so that people can find it. Yeah, I guess if people don't have any questions, I mean, we can put this onto the community side. If you come up with a question, if you're watching this afterwards, or you think of one as soon as we end, and then Tony can answer them on there. Otherwise, I guess we can probably wrap it up.
Yep. Well, and as I said, everything that you just saw, it's all going to be free, public, open source, and on GitHub.
Cool.
So it's not going to be hard to find, and I'll post it everywhere.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for preparing this. Interesting. Hopefully, people enjoyed it, and I'm not sure if we have another one. We maybe even have another one of these meetups next week. And if you haven't, keep it. Our colleague Lou has also been doing some stuff on Twitch. So if you look for Twitch Neo4j, there's some videos to watch on there as well. But anyway, I guess we'll call that a day. So thanks, Tony. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll
Thank you.
Next time.
Hope that wasn't too boring.
Nah, it was good. Cheers. See ya.
Cheers.